Good evening, guys. How we're doing? Midweek Wednesday. It is the 15th of July. So jumping on to do the usual Wednesday Q&A and looking forward with these. Looks like in terms of how busy I'm going to get in terms of going back to the gym, which is 25th of July, then the 27th onwards. In terms of coming on live, looks like probably be able to do that maybe once a week, or pre-record something around a different topic and then just release it so it'll be available in the group to watch, maybe in some other places as well. So once again, inspired by the weekly check-ins. Really appreciate you doing that each week, and give me feedback and let me know what I can help with, what's frustrating, what you want support with. It's always a big help. Now, what I'm going to talk about tonight is it's not an uncommon question. It's quite a common question, and it's a common frustration, and it is talking about the weight on the scales not moving, as in the scales not going in the right direction. Now, there's plenty of different factors that work with that. The most frustrating, probably the key thing is, though, it's quite frustrating. You're putting all the effort in, you're doing everything right, you're doing your nutrition and your tracking, you are working out regularly, you're getting that calorie expenditure is in the right sort of place, and the calories you've got coming in is in the right place, but still you're not seeing very much change week to week on the scales. Now, I wanted to acknowledge that first off, because that's certainly not to discount that feeling of frustration. What I do like to encourage, as I've said before, is not focusing entirely on the scale weight, which is why we look at having fitness tests, measurements and progress photos as well. They're all good tools to see what is going on in the overall picture. Now, partly it's cultural. I think over the years, I remember my mum and my dad, more because he used to race ride, getting on the scales regularly. And I think the same thing with my mum. She did some race riding as well. And so obviously the weight they were was important for the activity they were going to do. Basically, it's like being a jockey. It was only ever amateur, so it wasn't like super light. They're not super tiny people. But there was a factor. Now, in a sense, weight is arbitrary. What you weigh doesn't matter too much, unless you obviously are working at the top end of the scale where you know you're carrying too much weight to be healthy. Now, there's a difference between a healthy weight and some of the glossy Instagram or magazine pictures that we see. Hopefully I've said this before, when we see these people that are in phenomenal shape, and it appears they're in phenomenal shape all year round, some people, a very small minority, might be in that pretty good shape all year round. Particularly the guys, it's easier to maintain a physique like that as a guy, because generally carry more muscle, therefore can add a few pounds back in, and it doesn't look like they've changed very much. For ladies, there's a lot more going on. Some of these fitness models, people that you would maybe aspire to look like, that's their job. They haven't got 2 or 3 kids to look after. They haven't got a job where they're sat down. They've got plenty of time to rest and recover, as well as do the workouts and all that thing. And they're getting paid posts and sponsorship to portray that image of health and fitness, or fitness and physique, to look a certain way. And a lot of them, are putting out a good message these days of this is what it takes, this is the right way to eat, and not worrying too much about the scales. But that kind of cultural scale thing is there from more that I think that in kind of more traditional instances of kind of Slimming World, Weight Watchers, Slimming Clubs, it's always been about the weight, not necessarily about the body composition, and it's always been about eating a certain way to reduce weight. Now, that being said, I know how frustrating it is if the scales aren't moving in the right direction. So I don't want to discount that feeling at all, but just want to kind of give you some reassurance, really, that changes can still be going on, even if the weight on the scales isn't changing very much. Now, the number one thing that is potentially going on, if you're training, doing workouts, eating in the right sort of way, is actually your body composition is changing. That you are strengthening and having having more muscle, therefore ultimately going to end up more toned, which a lot of people look for. But being toned is having muscle, keeping muscle, and reducing body fat. Now that's what's going on. If you're in a calorie deficit, the only place your energy expenditure can come from is your stored body fat. Therefore, your body fat should be going down over time, and your muscle mass should at least be stabilizing. It's not a direct correlation in terms of building muscle whilst in a calorie deficit. It's actually quite hard. If your calories are a little bit higher, then maybe you can build some muscle as you use fat at certain times, particularly in recovery. The way to track body composition changing is through measurements. The classic ones being hips, stomach, legs for ladies particularly as well. And then arms might go up a little bit if you are training with weights. And obviously I appreciate not everyone's been doing that recently, but these are some of the changes that could be going on. So the number one thing is body composition. Second one is going to be one or two ways to do with hydration. Now, it sounds like a bit of a backwards way of putting it. If you drink more, your body actually turns over more water. And actually, if you're drinking less, your body doesn't retain weight, but it does retain water, because it starts to be, if you're dehydrated, your body's going to keep more water in. So actually, if you increase the amount of fluid, particularly water, that you're taking in, could be from other sources, tea, coffee. It was a mild kind of diuretic, takes water out of the system, but it's actually alleviated more by the amount of fluid you're taking in. Cordial, whatever drinks you're taking in. If it's liquid, it's going to contribute to your hydration. If you can get that up to a good level, now this is around about 700, so 3 bottles, kind of standard kind of bottles of water, 3 kind of bottles a day. It's going to give you around about 2 litres. Having that good hydration turnover is going to actually help your body optimise physiologically, run better, and therefore give the higher potential for weight loss to go on. That being said, if you have a good normal carbohydrate intake or slightly higher, so for instance, if you are vegetarian or vegan, your carbohydrate intake might be higher, just because there's going to be more carbohydrates associated with your protein sources as you're trying to balance those out. Then for every every unit or every molecule of a carbohydrate you absorb, you then absorb 4 or keep 4 kind of molecules or units of water with it. So if your body is quite flush with carbohydrates, it's going to have more water associated with it. Part of that's for digestion, part of that's for transport, that's for storage, that sort of thing. Same goes with if your nutritional intake is high in salt. Now, that might only be that might not happen very regularly, but something like having a takeaway, having something salty that's naturally salty as a kind of added extra. So Chinese takeaway particularly quite salty. Pizza, having some fries with salt on, whatever, fish and chips, salt and vinegar, that sort of thing. Having that extra salt in your body, more water stays with the salt until it comes out of your system. Now, excessive salt is not a bad thing. The body just processes it away. Historically, high salt was seen as this was the problem for heart disease and things like that. As it turns out, it's a correlation effect. High salt, the body can deal with that. It was the fact that the salt was coming from processed food and too much food coming in, so people were getting having problems, other health problems, not from the salt, but from the associated food that came with the salt, or that the salt was in. Just a cause and effect was not quite right. So our body can process salt really well, it just needs more water to do it. Therefore, one salty intake of food, or someone that regularly uses salt in your cooking and things like that, that's cool. It just means you're going to have more water in your body until that salt kind of processes through and levels out again. So those are the intake reasons. So we've got body composition, that's changing, look at measurements. We've got intake. So one potential way to see a shift in weight is to manipulate percentage of protein and carbohydrates ever so slightly, just favouring protein a little bit more. You might then see a shift in body weight as well with the associated water weight, which is usually why when someone radically changes their nutritional style of eating in the early stages of a weight loss plan or working towards weight loss, they might see a really big jump straight away because they've probably cut out quite a lot of carbohydrates, brought protein up. Carbs should still be in there, and I'm a big believer in this, and always say this: it's getting the right balance, not taking things out completely. Then they might actually see a big drop in the first place, and some of that is often water weight, and it's just to do with maybe they brought the volume of food down, so they're not having as many calories, but also the fact that then the body's not flush with carbohydrates all the time with the associated water, they can drop down. Then we've got natural fluctuations. Everybody, that's quite funny, 10,000 steps has just gone off and I've not moved, it's because I move my arms around when I talk. Natural fluctuations. Everybody, natural weight fluctuates. Sometimes for the reasons just been talking about with nutritional intake, can be other things as well. Without being too crude, whether you need the toilet or been to the toilet, that sort of thing. It's very difficult to weigh yourself at the same time every week or every second day or however often you do it for comparison and make all the conditions right. As in, there's no kind of, you're way different on the same day, even if you didn't eat anything. You might actually weigh more later in the day. There's a weird thing where I've had people weigh themselves before a workout, weigh themselves after. They've literally only drunk some fluid in the workout, but they seem to weigh a lot more straight afterwards. Don't know why that is. It's just a very bizarre thing, that just the body's natural weight fluctuates under different conditions. So there's that to take into account as well. If you're only weighing once a week, then and you really want to get it accurate, maybe think about doing it 3 times a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and take an average. I used to weigh myself on a Monday, but then under the understanding was that actually I'm probably going to eat more on a weekend. So actually my more accurate body weight is probably on by taking it in the middle of the week. So I always weigh myself on a Wednesday when I'm weighing. I'm not doing it at the moment. When I'm weighing, I always weigh myself on a Wednesday, because if I have had a higher intake and I've brought my calories down after the weekend, then it's going to have leveled off again by the middle of the week. More accurate way of doing it is an average 3 times across the week is probably the most you'd need to do, and it also then stops you from kind of being fixated every single day. Remember, weight is only your relation to the earth. It's gravity that causes weight. The monthly cycle is another reason that weight fluctuates, because of the priorities of your body's physiology. For ladies, what your body's actually going through, you're going to retain more water at the coming up to and through your period, because the body needs it to do the processes that are going on. And then the other aspects of physiology are down-rated to deal with the actual period that's happening. So digestion, fat burning, that sort of thing aren't prioritized in the same way by the body. Added to the fact you are probably feel a bit more lethargic, lower energy, your activity might be lower, all that sort of thing, weight's going to naturally fluctuate then. So, as I just touched on, your weight is only your relationship to the earth. It's gravity that causes the weight. It's actually, the correct term is mass. Weight is actually the mass times gravity. It's measured in newtons, which no one measures in. We always measure in kilos or stones and pounds. So if we can hopefully use it just as a tool, but start to move away from being really focused on it and start to use the other tools as well. Here's something we could do. Rather than weighing every week, or as well as weighing every week, use the tape measure every week, because it's really easy to focus on the scales every week, but it'd be just as quick to put the tape measure around your waist, around your hips, and see what's happening there. In the same way, don't want you to get kind of too focused on that, overly focused on that instead. But it's another tracking tool that might actually show a better picture, especially with the two combined. And then adding in the fitness tests as well. if you're getting fitter, your body composition must be changing. Now, you get more efficient in your cardiovascular, your heart and lungs, they become more efficient as you're exercising. That's cool, that's a good thing, that's going to maintain your health. But the fitness tests that we do are all strength based, they're all muscles working. So if your muscles are working better, they're able to do more, your body composition has changed, which is obviously another good thing. So you might actually hit a weight that your body is settling at because your body composition is just optimizing. But if things are still changing in terms of measurements in your fitness tests, then something positive in that respect is still going on. So it's trying not to be so fixated on the weight and using it as a tool, but remembering those reasons why weight does fluctuate or it might stay fairly stable. If you do get to a genuine plateau, what I'm talking about here is if weight has literally not moved for 4 or 5 weeks. First thing is to make sure honestly tracking right, and that is making sure that although you're kind of inputting your main meals and your snacks into kind of MyFitnessPal or however you're tracking, that you're not just having those little bits here and there that then add up. That might be a reason. If you genuinely hit a plateau, it might be time to adjust the macros. So if you're someone that has experienced quite a lot of weight loss, then actually your body composition will have changed, so your calorie needs will have changed. What I don't like to do is push things down too hard, too fast. I like to start quite high. So if you started off, had an initial kind of breakthrough in a sense, then it might be time to adjust it. But like I say, there's going to be a good 4 or 5 weeks of sticking to the same and tracking accurately, make sure it's all right before doing that. That's particularly important for ladies because of the monthly cycle. That's only two to three good weeks, and then that 1 week where nothing might happen, and we actually need to get past that, see what's going on other side of the period to see actually has anything changed or is it all really stable. Other thing might sometimes be that you've kind of been in a calorie deficit for so long that you actually need what's called a diet break, which is going to be anything from 7 to 14 to even slightly longer if someone's been in a hard deficit for a long time, of bringing calories back up. Now, if someone's been in a deficit for a long time, I've worked with people that have done this, in a sense, constantly dieting, actually then we need to bring calories back up for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, maybe stepping it up a little bit at a time to get the body using all the calories again. And it might be that because of being in that deficit all the time, cortisol's elevated, hunger hormones are all over the place, and hormones in general aren't working very well because someone's been in a deficit has probably squashed things like carbohydrates and fats down really hard to create that deficit, and then other physiological processes are going on as well. So one of the number one things that I look out for, if someone says I've been dieting for a long time, is if they're not sleeping great, they're probably not getting enough food in. So we need to bring that calorie intake back up for the body to be able to reset and go again. Most people, most of us, quite naturally take diet breaks. Something comes up like a barbecue, meal out, whatever, and that just naturally creates that extra bit of food intake on a weekly basis, every other week or so, where we actually increase our intake again, kind of replenish all the glycogen, and as we've just been talking about, the body stores that back up, muscles get replenished, and sometimes actually that then shows a drop afterwards, because the body just does a load of processes and can work a bit better. So we tend to do that naturally. If it's something that you think actually either now or in the future, do you know what, I've been at this for such a long time, not taking a break at all for 12, 16, 5, 6 months, then maybe that's something we need to look at. So give me a shout to help you kind of put that into place. As I said, most of us naturally do that because something comes up when we take a diet break. Don't like the term cheat meals because don't really, in a sense, need them. We're just planning higher days and lower days, balance things out, and keep going along those lines with a bit more kind of knowledge around the fact that that's okay and how to work that in. So hopefully don't feel like I'm just kind of glossing over the fact that it is frustrating that the scales don't move all the time. I totally get that. Just trying to give you some reassurance that the body is a wonderful thing and doesn't kind of behave in a linear fashion. You know, we're living, breathing, constantly changing people, and you know, body works in amazing and crazy ways at times that can be frustrating. But there's definite reasons why the body might not be changing, or the scales might not be changing, but the body is still changing, and that's what's really important to focus on. So, any more information about any of these things, if you feel like there's something you should be doing or want to know more about, or feel like something, could I do this, should I do this, please just ask, and yeah, happy to help. If you think you might need calories adjusting or macros adjusting, percentages tweaking to get working again, or a diet break, also please hit me up and give me a shout. So have a really good Wednesday evening. Don't forget all the different workouts coming up the rest of the week. Stretch tomorrow morning, lower body and glutes tomorrow night, 5x5 on Friday, and then boot camp on Saturday as well. So yeah, plenty to go at, plenty of activity, and getting ready to go back to the gym another 9-10 days time. Just keep on going and get prepared for that as well. Great stuff. Have a really good evening. I'll speak to you soon.